Hello, I'm Michael Voris.
And I'm Father Pablo, Catholic missionary priest. We really want you to watch every week the one true faith. Had you left that one true faith, please come home. We're waiting for you because we love you.
Hello and welcome once again to The One True Faith, the most disturbing hour on television because we talk about eternal life, the biggest, most important issue that any of us faces. And what we must never forget is that our eternal lives are determined by our earthly lives, the choices we make here. So, what we do now, what we believe now, how we treat other people now will echo throughout eternity and will be the deciding, determining factor of where we spend eternity. Now, this is a truth that must always be declared directly, forthrightly, because this is the heart of Christianity. This is the end game. We are created to be with Christ, and that is what we are striving toward, and that must be declared without ambiguity whatsoever. Eternity hangs in the balance in this life. Now, there are many, many sources of people and enemies of this message, with Satan behind all of them, that wants to prevent this message from being declared. And those sources must be challenged, and that is what this program is all about. One source of confusion for Catholics and Christians in general, which really needs challenging today, is the whole idea of so-called spirituality. It's the idea that I'm just a spirit, or at least my spirit is the only aspect of me that's really important. A lot of this belief finds expression in, not surprisingly, something we call spiritualism, and more specifically, a list of beliefs called the New Age that kind of comprise the New Age. This entire system denies the goodness and truth and beauty of matter, of the material world, and it also corrupts an essential truth of the human soul and the human person. You probably heard me say before that bad theology begins with bad philosophy, and the philosophical system which the New Age movement is built on is logically flawed at its very foundation. You know, we could amend our thought here to say that bad logic leads to bad philosophy, which leads to bad theology. Faithful Catholics and other people of goodwill who are watching the world spin out of control, we have to face certain facts. We have to face head on, look at them truthfully, and understand that the way we see the world is not the way the world is. We need to look at it more directly and honestly. We've got to pull our heads out of the sand and take a look at the way the world is today. Most people don't think anymore. Or if they think very narrowly in just a very sort of self-interested way. But when it comes to some other manner of thinking, they abandon thought. This has been a very long process to get man to sort of give up his intellectual side and concentrate more on his passions or his emotional side. Matter of fact, it's been such a long process, and where we are right now, that it has Satan's fingerprints all over it. All over it. Our ancient enemy knows that the way for us to get to God is to see Him clearly, so to understand, to intellectualize. To figure Him all out? Certainly not. Of course not. We're finite. He's infinite. But God has revealed Himself to us in the person of Jesus Christ. And He hasn't revealed Himself just to our emotions or on an emotional level. He comes and presents something for our intellects to accept or reject. And that's how God presents Himself to us. He walks up to somebody and He says, "Do you believe?" Well, believe based on what? Based on just how you happen to feel that morning when you woke up? No. What do you do? What does he say in his prayer to the Father before he raises Lazarus from the dead? He says, "Father, I know you always hear my prayer. I do this so that those people standing round me might believe." He proposes something to our intellects. So our intellects are our way to God. Satan knows that. So he wants to dull our intellects. He's done a great job on our passions, hasn't he? Oh, he's got those sort of in the back pocket. So now he's going after the intellect. The only thing we have as humans is free will and intellect. And to the degree that our free wills are darkened and our passions are under his control, our free will is negated. We can't freely choose God anymore because we don't see him, we don't understand him, we don't move towards him, we don't even know that we need to do that anymore. We come up with a whole different system, all kinds of wacky beliefs. New Age fits right into that category. So, Satan is very happy to watch humanity set its way down a course which just sort of slowly but surely abandons the intellect. Most teachers, if they're honest with you, school teachers will tell you that, yeah, they've noticed over the course of the last 20 or 30 years a sort of general dummying down of the student population. This isn't to say that students are dumb. It's to say that the process by which students think today is radically different than most people over 40 were taught when they were in school. It's very different, and any of you around here are parents know exactly what we're talking about. They don't learn how to think. It's not that they're incapable of it. They're not taught how to think. Here's a proposition. What are the facts supporting this proposition? What are the arguments against these facts? Weigh them in each other. Weigh them in the balance. Come to a logical conclusion. Test that conclusion. All of that kind of process, that's not taught anymore. What do they do in schools today? Here's a set of exam questions that at the end of the year you have to know. So I'm going to teach you to pass these questions. I don't care if you know how to reason to them or not. I'm just going to tell you 2 + 2 = 4. You just believe it. I'm not going to tell you why it does. I'm not going to tell you how to reason to that. I'm just going to tell you it does. You learn it, and we're going to move on. Shoring up our intellects requires work, and it's hard work. You have to take time out of your day and read this, and study that, and question the other. You have to grapple with concepts. You have to form ideas. You have to test those ideas against other ideas. You have to take some of the thoughts you held previously and say, maybe this thought was wrong. You have to chuck it out. You have to have discussions over dinner. You have to sit and visit with people. You have to read. You have to pay attention. All of this requires work. Your brain's a muscle, and you got to exercise it, just like any muscle in your body. But if you're not doing that, your intellect isn't going to improve. It's just the way it is. You have to develop new thoughts, and sometimes you've got to throw out old ones. Now, you don't throw them out because you don't like them. You throw them out because they don't stand the test of intellect. This is exactly the activity that goes on in science labs, in boardrooms, in the halls of higher academia, all over America and all over the Western world. This is how the world that works functions. But on Main Street, something entirely different has happened. There is an abandonment of the general intellect. Reading is out, video games are in. Study has been replaced by, I don't even know what the latest one is. What is it, Sony Xbox or whatever? I'm not going to study, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to sit and read something, I'm going to play a computer game. Well, you've got a very limited intellect if that's all you're going to do is expose your brain to video games and your Martian is going to attack some Terminator killer and that's all you ever do with your life. You're going to have a very limited intellect. The hard work of improving the mind has been abandoned for really quick reflexes. I've got the fastest thumbs in the world, but I can't think a thought to save my life. Now, everyone thinks about and has an opinion about the next American Idol, but nobody, virtually nobody, has a thought or any opinion about the 10 Commandments and how that's going to impact your life here and in eternity. Humans are intellect and free will, and we are joined, these qualities are joined to flesh, to matter. That's what makes us human. We are, above all creatures, the only creature that is both soul and body. We are the highest of bodily creation and the lowest of spiritual creation. And as such, we are this unique blend. And what the New Age movement does is take half of that component, the flesh, the matter, and say it is unimportant. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the spiritual side of me. And in the spiritual side, which is your intellect and your free will is corrupted. So look how a human being is dismantled by New Age. First of all, half of you doesn't matter. Get rid of the body. Now what's left? A half of that. Doesn't matter. Your intellect. because things are proposed to your intellect in the New Age which are stupid. They're stupid. They're stupid because they don't make sense. They are nonsense. They are nonsensical, no sense. That's what we mean by stupid. So your body's out of the mix of who you are. Your intellect is out of the mix. Well, what's left? Your free will. But without your intellect to guide your free will, where do you go? This is what we're going to be talking about today. Look at this in a different way. A drug addict or an alcoholic doesn't really have a free will anymore, or at least not as much of a free will if he or she wasn't addicted. They aren't capable any longer of having total mastery of themselves. You see that in their lives every day. Instead of going to work, they go to a bottle, or they go to the Skid Row and get another shot of heroin or a line of Coke or something. They don't control their own lives anymore. Their free will is not really any longer free. So because of that, they aren't fully human. I don't mean they don't have the worth of a human being. I mean, what it is to be human, they're hampered. They're limiting their capacity to be fully human. They can't love the way they should love. Anybody who's ever been around an alcoholic knows that. They can't love the way they need to love. They can't express love because they have so turned in on themselves because of this addiction and their free will. They're not free anymore. Their will can't reach out to those they love. They come home drunk and beat the hell out of the people that they love. Or they don't come home at all and leave those whom they love wondering what happened to them. They give up their responsibility. See how when your free will becomes ensnared, your capacity to be fully human changes and reduces and reduces. And this is the exact opposite of what Christ has called us to. I have come so that you may have life and have it to the full, to the complete. When your free will, part of what it is that makes you human, is reduced, then your ability to be fully human is reduced. If that happens with the capacity of your free will, it also happens with that other aspect that makes us human, which is our intellect. When your intellect is reduced and shrunk down and narrowed, what it is to be human, to be fully human, also correspondingly shrinks down and becomes less and less. It becomes harder for you to be fully human, to be who God Almighty created you to be. This is why the Catholic Church has always placed such an emphasis on the intellect, on the intellectual tradition, because be denying our intellects or diminishing them or ignoring them or downplaying them leads us away. It diverts us from our true end. Anything that diverts us from our true end absolutely plays into the hands of our ancient enemy. And again, Satan does not care why we don't make it to heaven. He doesn't care if you're an adulterer or somebody who gets mixed up in the occult, or you're a serial killer, or you're Adolf Hitler, or you're just a rotten husband who cheats on his wife. He doesn't care, because in every single one of those categories, you end up in hell. So he doesn't care. This is just one more, the whole New Age movement is just one more horrible choice on this great big smorgasbord of humans to choose from, which diverts them away from Jesus Christ. It's just one more bad choice. And New Age in particular is full of all kinds of little variations and twigs and variations on a theme and various facets of the same horrible, ugly jewel. And you can look at it from different ways, and you're still choosing. Everyone, no matter how you choose here, you're choosing not Jesus. And that's all Satan cares about. That's all he cares about. The intellectual tradition in Catholicism is there for a reason. The Catholic Church began the university system. How many of you knew that? The university system in the Middle Ages that we have today, well, it's changed now because it's become very secularized, but the university system that exists in the world today, its foundations is right in the Catholic Church. The idea of multiple studies of a liberal arts, liberal in the good sense of the word, a liberal arts study that you begin to see, you study this discipline and this discipline and this discipline, and you see the finger of God tracing through all of these different studies. That's Catholic. Big Roman Catholic. That's a beautiful thing. Look at God in all of the splendor of His creation. Who would look at God and see God's handiwork in a flower and yet deny it in a beautiful rainbow or a summer evening rain? He's in all of this. His work, His handiwork manifests His glory in all of this. So the same way throughout all of creation we see God's glory. The church reflects on this and says, well, God's work, God's handiwork is in all of these other intellectual pursuits as well. Math, science, history, geometry, the arts, the theater, the medicine, everything. So we need to put together some sort of universal place where we can study all of these things and become acquainted with God in all of these different disciplines. Hence, the university. That's why the Catholic Church started the school system, established museums, patronized the arts, because what truth and beauty and good is in these things is a reflection of Almighty God. That's why when young men go to study to be priests, after university, after they have their degree, they have years more of study ahead of them. All you've done so far, young seminarian Pete, is just learn a little bit about the world. Now we're going to teach you about the origins of that world. Sit down and learn philosophy for a couple of years. Now come back and do theology for 4 more years. People who are Catholic and serious about Catholic know their faith because they have studied it. What's the point of all this talk about the intellect? That the Catholic Church, founded personally by God, preaches that we must come to know God. How do we do that? Through our intellects weighing and making decisions about the world around us, passing judgment on events, and arriving at conclusions about people and places. Don't you do this in your regular life? I'm going to take this job or I'm not going to take that job. I'm going to let my children play with this child, but I'm not going to let them play with that child. We're going to invest our money in this, we're not going to invest our money in that. Why should our spiritual lives be any different? Why should we approach eternity any differently than we should intellectually than we approach the world around us? Isn't the whole point of approaching the world like this to make what is the best decision in each of these different areas? Well, why don't we do that in eternity? Because we don't see the immediate results of it like we do here. Because we don't use our intellects to say, what's that famous line from the movie Gladiator? What we do in life echoes in eternity. Oh, you bet. And it more than echoes in eternity, it becomes eternity, what we do in this life. God's saving action happened in history. It is a historical, verifiable event. It's not a thought, it's not a belief, it's not a system, it's not some weird thing I feel foggy about. It's a historical event. We can take you right to the hill where it happened, show you the spot, show you the history, pull out the documents, trace the historical record of it, and propose it to your intellect and say, do you believe this or do you not? And I propose it to you based on this paperwork. Read these accounts of it right here. There's 4 of them. Read them and make up your own mind about it because it actually happened in time, in history. And it is precisely because it happened that it can be proposed to our intellects. The redeeming act of the Almighty blossomed in time and is therefore real. This is the first striking difference between Christianity and every other system of beliefs that there is. There are questions about Christianity, certainly, of course there are. Anybody who approaches it has questions. And Christianity absolutely is commanded by its founder to give an answer. Go out and teach the world. Go to all the 4 corners. You will be my witnesses to this. Peter says in his letter, always be prepared to give a reason for your hope. Not a feeling. Always be prepared to give a reason for your hope. But if you notice the couple of terms we've used, history and real, the New Age movement is a grouping or kind of a hodgepodge of various philosophical systems that ultimately deny history and deny reality. If you didn't hear that, listen again. What? They deny history and they deny reality? Yeah. The New Age movement, if you want to call it that, has to deny history and deny reality because it has no rooting in either. If you walk up to a Christian and say, tell me about your Jesus Christ, I can say, what's the year now? 2008, 2009. So, 1987 years ago, whatever it was, a man named Jesus Christ did da-da-da-da-da. He developed a group of followers. Here they are. These are their names. This is what happened. Here's the events. He did this. He did that. This happened. He died. He rose from the dead. He went to heaven. They started a church. I give you all the historical facts about it. Any Christian should be able to do that. Ask a New Ager to say that to you. Well, we don't really talk about history, and we really don't talk about reality, because what's real? What's real? Matter isn't really real. Really? Well, that obviously didn't hurt you, did it? Since my reality isn't real and your face isn't real, then my fist smashing into your reality didn't really hurt, did it? They'd arrest you in a heartbeat, wouldn't they? Of course they would. Christianity looks at creation as a personal statement by a personal, self-reflecting, and loving God. New Age philosophy denies the idea of a personal God. In place of God, New Agers celebrate energy. It's just energy. It's not intelligent energy, it's just energy. It's cosmic. Oh, energy. See how enraptured you are right about cosmic? Did he say cosmic? Ooh, cosmic energy. It's the source. The source. The source. It's consciousness. Oh, it's consciousness. If you've ever watched Star Wars, it's the Force. The Force be with you. What's the Force? I don't know. I don't know. Luke Skywalker? What is it? I have no idea. But let it guide me. It who? I don't know. This is New Age. This is what New Age is. It's an ambiguous, vague, nebulous thing. You can never nail it down because it can't be nailed down because it defies your common sense. It's a moving target. Call it in football when they change the rules, moving the goalpost. Every time you think you get close there, whoop, move the goalpost. Move over here. It's the Force. That's how the Force works. It's just the Force. Remember, New Age is not one hard and fast set of creeds and beliefs. How could it be? Ask a New Ager to define what he or she means by their set of beliefs, and make sure you have a bottle of scotch with you because you're going to need it when it's done. The very object that they're talking about can't even be agreed upon. In Christianity, the debate is essentially a question of how to worship Jesus Christ and the Trinity. That's the debate among Christians. There's Catholic Christians and then non-Catholic Christians. The debate isn't, is Jesus Christ real or is he a nebulous cloud? That's a New Age debate. In Christianity, it's how should Jesus Christ, who is God, be worshiped? When it's all said and done, that's the debate. Catholics say he should be worshiped in the Eucharistic sacrifice, God the Father, because that's how Jesus set it up, and all the rest of them have it wrong. However, in this situation, in Christianity, they have bits and pieces right here and there, but the little parts they have right are Catholic rights and truths they have. But the New Age thing is an entirely different thing. They can't even nail down who or what they're talking about. So the New Age movement has three different ways of talking about what commonly we can refer to as God. The first God language or understanding they have is something called monism, and that is simply that everything comes from God. Well, that kind of sounds Christian, kinda. They don't mean it the way we mean it, though. The second thing is called pantheism, that all that exists is God. It's all God. This is God. This is God. This microphone is God. My shoe is God. You're God. This leads naturally to the concept of the divinity of the individual, because if this is God and this is God and this is God, my shoe is God, well, you're God and I'm God and we're all God. That's part of what it means. That's pantheism. There's another thing called panentheism, and that is that God is everything that exists. So when you add this and this and this in my shoe and you and me, you add them all together, that equals God. Why? Because it's that cosmic energy, and we all know that energy and matter can never be destroyed or created. It just always is. So God is just always this undulating mass of the plant that lives and the plant that dies, and the energy in the ground turns into the plant that the cow eats and the cow dies, and I have a hamburger and I got God in me and I'm God and God's there, and the next cow comes along and I have some of the cow's milk and then I drink the milk and that's God, and we're all God and that's God. That's panentheism. God is at once the entire universe and the sum total of the whole universe, and yet transcends the universe. This idea leads to the idea that parts of God are in each one of us, that in the beginning, whatever that was, since there's no history, I don't know how you talk about the beginning, but since there at the very beginning there was God, and then God erupted, and little pieces of God flew all over the universe, and there's one in you and me and this book and everything else, and it's all trying to get back to God. It's like silly putty pulled apart in a million different pieces, all trying to get back into one big silly putty ball and put back in the little plastic eggshell. That's one version of New Age. Now, lots of these New Age things all contradict each other, and I think that's important to realize. The last two, pantheism and panentheism, these are pretty much where the New Age movement today makes its home. The idea that everything comes from God, monism, the first one we mentioned briefly, it's alive, but it's sort of the kind of the forgotten stepchild of the New Age movement. It's precisely here in these last two that the distorted idea of reality makes its home and starts spreading its errors, that God is in everything and that everything is God. Since the whole system is built on spirit and energy and an enigmatic source, the Force again if you're in Star Wars, then matter is really just sort of a temporary block, and it's useless because my body isn't energy. But my body has energy in it that's like bouncing around inside me, trying to get out. Well, one day my matter will go away and my energy will go boom up to God, or whatever we call it, the source, the force, the consciousness. This is what New Age movement is all about. So matter is really just temporary, and since it's temporary, guess what? You can do with your matter whatever you want, including commit adultery, including commit any sexual sin that you want, including rob banks, and you can kill people, and you can do whatever you want, because matter is secondary. So a basic fundamental idea that denies what it is to be human, body and soul, that's what's at work here with the New Age movement. Now let's examine the absolutely ludicrous claim that I'm spiritual, I'm very spiritual. You hear this kind of blather all the time. So the point that this is a type of point that needs to be questioned and examined rigorously with questions like, well, would you define spirit for me then if you're very spiritual? How are you and your spirit related to each other? Where did your spirit come from? And what do you mean by the word person? A New Ager will fall all over themselves trying to answer those questions because they have no philosophical grounding to answer those kinds of questions. These are all important questions because they frame our understanding of God and us and our relationship to Him. If God is just an energy and we have bits of that energy, and my goal is to reunite with my body is to reunite, then my body doesn't really matter. This is one reason New Age cults, like their ancient ancestors in the pre-Christian times and the early post-Christian times, were always given to orgies and sexual license and human sacrifices because the body did not matter. The whole realm of the New Age is radically different, has a radically different end view of the universe than Christianity. New Age is ultimately and finally a return to how things were originally, whenever and wherever that was supposed to have happened. This begs the question, if we go all the way back to just how it was at the beginning, well, what was the point of all of this to begin with? We're going to talk about this and a lot more when we come back right after this. All right, welcome back to The One True Faith. We're talking about New Age and spiritualism. Let's go to the big picture, right? New Age, which by the way is not very new at all, and I'll tell you why in a little bit, advances an unhistorical set of beliefs that cannot be proven and cannot be tested by anybody. Even insiders of the New Age movement can't prove or test these theories against each other. Walk up to a New Ager and say, give me your historical evidence of what you're saying. They won't. And because they know that it's not true, or at least the people who push this agenda know it's not true, they just simply deny that there's history. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that convenient? Well, I don't have to prove it to you in history because there's no such thing as history. That's ridiculous. See, for example, a good example of not being able to prove your argument is reincarnation. How do you prove something in the negative? How do you prove that this really isn't Queen Elizabeth standing here in front of me? Reincarnated. You ever notice that nobody ever comes back as like some, horrible pauper who was like ridden with leprosy and blind? No, they were always like, King Farouk or, King Tut or, they're never just some poor starving, peasant somewhere, unless the person is so obscure that there's absolutely no record of them. Reincarnate, there's not one shred of proof for reincarnation except somebody wildly going on, fanatically, carrying on about it. But we can hop on a plane right now, go on a jet, get to Lourdes, France, step out of the plane, and go review dozens and dozens and dozens of authenticated, scientifically proven miracles of healing. People will go, oh, that's Catholic, that can't be true. But if it's reincarnation, it's like, oh, well, that sounds really glamorous. That sounds cosmic. Oh, we guess that must be true because I had a dream once. And there goes your intellect. New Age is a lie. Plain and simple, the New Age is a lie. It's flawed, it's illogical, it's untested, it's unproven, it's unverified and unverifiable. It's a set of ridiculous opinions that propose a worldview that is just flat out stupid. It's stupid. The New Age movement is stupid. But it's more than that. It's dangerous because it leads people away from the truth, and the truth is Jesus Christ. Much of the New Age movement centers around a type of universalism, a belief that no one religion is right and any other religion is wrong. They're all the same. All paths lead to God. They sort of join us to a great consciousness. One of the symbols of the New Age movement is that great big mountain, I don't know how to pronounce it, the Sadra or however you pronounce it, with all these little paths going up the side of it. Some paths look easy, some paths look tough, sometimes they cross over each other. But you know what? They all get to the summit eventually because it's all really just the same God, just expressed differently. Where does it say that? Aside from the New Age movement, where does it say that? I can tell you that the God of Christianity doesn't make that claim. As a matter of fact, I've got proof right here that the God of Christianity and that God's followers say the exact opposite. I am the Lord your God. You will not have false gods before me. I am the Lord and there is no other. So, for all the purporters of the New Age movement who want to say, well, all religions, you say, hold on a second. That's not what my religion says. You don't put claims on what my religion says, counting on me being ignorant and not being able to respond to you. My religion says that God says, I am the Lord and there is no other. You will not have false gods before me. Okay, well, so that takes care of that whole idea that we're all the same religion, all working back together. But that doesn't stop New Agers. To this end, adherents to the New Age movement clamor for a new world order. Oh, now we're getting into the whole political thing. Yes, this New Age movement has its little octopus fingers in everything. There's a new world order where divisions, unhappy divisions among Christians and Sikhs and Muslims and atheists and agnostics, these things really don't matter because we're all just human. We're all the same thing. We don't need governments. We don't need nationalities. We don't need all these different monies. Isn't it horrible when you go to another country and you have to stand there and exchange your money? Let's all just be happy together. Let's all have the same currency and the same world leader and let's all pay attention to the earth and make sure that we all treat the earth the same. We're all the same. We all have the same religion. Blah, blah. Yeah, wrong. John Paul, not for nothing did John Paul emphasize whenever he went on any of his foreign trips, did he emphasize the particular culture in that place. And repeatedly said in every single culture he went to, hang on to your cultural identity. Everywhere he went, didn't matter if it was Africa, Australia, Denver, Washington, D.C., Lourdes, wherever it was, hang on to your cultural identity. That is part of what makes us who we are. You can't use that identity to crush another group, but you can certainly use it to understand yourself. That's your lineage. That's where you came from. The goal of this whole one united humanity is to be free from disease and poverty and hunger and pollution. You know what? It's a utopia. It's a utopia that has no place for the true God. And that ought to rattle Christians' cages and upset them tremendously. There is, if this story sounds familiar to you, it probably should. I'll take you back to the book of Genesis. Remember the Tower of Babel? Remember the Tower of Babel and what the goal was? It was to reach heaven by man's unified effort. Well, God doesn't like that idea very much. You reach heaven by coming to God, not on your own efforts, human beings. There are lots of ancillary issues around the whole, in society, around the whole New Age movement. Some elements of this can be found in the environmental movement. There is a sort of a New Age component to the environmental movement. I don't mean that every time you buy a hybrid car you're supporting the New Age movement, but there is a mentality partially in the environmental movement that is very rooted in the New Age thing, that we have Mother Earth, and Mother Earth is alive, has a sort of personality, is a living component, has a certain divinity to it. That's going further than what Christianity says. Christians say we have stewardship over creation and a responsibility to care for the environment because God has entrusted it to us. But it isn't alive and has a personality that we somehow have to bow down and worship. That is an aspect of the New Age. This whole idea comes from a belief that God is in everything and everything is God. So nature, naturally, the environment, has a personality and is divine. Nature is not divine. And speaking of nature, all of this New Age stuff sort of got a shot in the arm a few decades ago with the release of a song back in, I guess it was the 1960s or so. Do you know the song I'm talking about? This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Now we're going to edit that out. The age of Aquarius, do any of you know what that means? What are we talking about with the age of Aquarius? The age of Aquarius is a reference to the precession of the zodiac signs. But when you're talking about, Aquarius, Pisces, etc., but when you're talking about what we're talking about here with this New Age movement, they're talking about a reverse of the zodiac. So instead of moving in the progression that we're used to, like, I don't know what the zodiac symbols are because I've never really cared, but whatever comes after Aquarius, well, that you're in that age for a while, and then the next age you move into. So people who sort of support this whole New Age movement say that the Earth passes through each one of these zodiac signs roughly every 2,300 years or so. And what's happened now is that we have passed into the new age of Aquarius. See the name of the movement? We're in the new age. That's what this is all about. And what happens in the age of Aquarius? Go back, I'm not singing it for you. Go back and, thank you. You're saying thank you. Go back and listen to the words of the song. The dawning of the age of Aquarius, harmony and understanding, peace and blah, 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 and love abounding, blah, 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 having your visions and all this. That's what the whole song's about. That's what it's about. Yeah, you never knew that when all you people in the 1960s were out there grooving and dancing on the floor, that you were sort of ushering in the New Age movement, did you? But that's what you were doing, unknowingly. What the New Age movement does is it's sort of the age of Aquarius, which is what we've just moved into in the sort of the 19th century or so. We're 100 to 200 years into this 2200-year age of Aquarius. So this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. We're in the new age. We've moved out of the age of Pisces, which was from essentially the time of the beginning of Christianity until now. So that was Christianity's time. Christianity has to go. This is the new age. This is the age of Aquarius, where we all come together in one big unity, where we all go up this mountain, all these different paths to the same thing. We become enlightened. We share this same consciousness. This is what's going on. This is what's going on. See, you got to listen to your music. You got to listen to your music because you never know what's being said there. Hence, there's no need for religion anymore because we're in the new age. We're in the age of Aquarius. You don't need religion anymore. For that fact, you don't need individual governments because now we're all unity. We're the same consciousness. You don't need nations. You don't need currency. You don't need any of that stuff. But faithful followers of Christ in His holy Catholic Apostolic Church, we don't look for a new age for humanity because we know something else. Christianity, unlike New Age, concludes with the absolute beautiful, sublime truth of a new heaven and a new earth. The truth that who we are will be elevated into a state of intimacy with the divinity, with God Himself, personally, me and God, you and God, united in conscious knowledge and love of each other. That is the end game in Christianity. This is the sublime truth that Christians know and the Catholic Church has proclaimed throughout the last age and in this age. This is the great truth of the universe. Not that we are God or have parts of God in us, or God is all of us all summed up like a mathematical equation, but that there is a God and He is eternal and we are His creatures and we are finite, and He loves us with a love beyond all telling and desires us to share His love with Him for all eternity without losing our individuality. See, in the New Age movement, or in that philosophy, you go back and get absorbed into the source, the whatever it is, not whoever it is, whatever it is. You just get absorbed into that and you aren't you anymore. You aren't you anymore. How do we know this? We can prove Christianity. Do you know that? Christianity can be proven. We can prove it by the death and resurrection of Christ. The New Age movement can't be proven at all. None of the philosophies, or if you want to call them theologies, I hesitate to use that word, none of that stuff can be proven in the New Age. There's nothing to prove. Where do you start? If you can't tell me a time and a place to go look at something, where you just hand me some book written by some dude smoking pot in Haight-Ashbury, and he has some revelation because, he got a bad bunch of grass in his Ziploc bag that day. Hey, look at this. This is cool. I sucked on this, and here's some consciousness for you. That doesn't prove anything. It proves whatever you paid for, you paid too much for. But this is what it is. That's why the whole New Age movement began in the drug culture. Because you'd have to be on drugs to try to get and understand this. This is why Satan wants the human intellect darkened beyond the degree that it already is by its fallen natural state. A non-thinking person will accept anything that comes down the road, generally accept the truth. But the thinking man, the one who employs his God-given ability to think, this is the man who can contemplate the wonders of a loving Father and start to see the connections, the interconnectedness of the universe. And that is wisdom, where you can begin to see how this fits with this and that connects, and you begin to see all of the connections and they come together. That's wisdom. Because in order to achieve that, you must be dwelling under the shelter of the Most High, as the 91st Psalm says. And our blessed Lord has said, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Our freedom in Christ depends in part on our judgment, our understanding, our intellect. Doesn't mean you have to be smart to get to heaven. It means whatever your intellectual capacity is, you must devote to God. You shall therefore love the Lord your God with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your heart, and all your strength. That's the meaning behind the statement, you can't love what you do not know. God wants us to know Him. That's why He sent Jesus Christ. He wants us to know Him. This is the reason the Catholic Church has always placed such heavy emphasis on academics and study and the intellect. A properly formed and followed intellect necessarily leads to God, because God created the intellect for this very purpose, to lead back to Him, just as He created the universe, to stimulate our intellects to ask questions about where did this universe come from. We are a people made for God, and for those who remain faithful, our reward will be something we can only now dream and hope to see. But the day will come when our hope and longing won't need to be hope and longing anymore, for we will see reality for exactly what it is. And on the thought of a new heaven and a new earth, imagine this, meditate on this, pour over this in your heart for a moment, that what humanity did not see at the beginning, creation, it will be the eternal witness to in the end, the new creation. Who needs a new age when we have a new heavens and a new earth? Be right back with some questions from the studio right after this. All right, welcome back to The One True Faith. This is our Q&A section of the show from the studio audience. Sir, what's your name and where are you from?
My name is George. I'm from Warren. And my question is, are the Eastern religions considered part of the New Age movement?
Not precisely. A lot of the philosophies that underpin the Eastern religions are absorbed into the New Age movement, but the sort of sinister thing, I suppose, if you wanted to say it that way, about the New Age movement is that New Age movement borrows from all sorts of different religions. It borrows a lot more from the Eastern religions than it does from Christianity, but there's a little bit of everything in there. As we said earlier in the show, it's kind of like a hodgepodge of different things. So if you are a poorly schooled Hindu or a poorly schooled Christian or a poorly schooled Muslim, if you read some of this New Age stuff, there's going to be little bits and pieces of this that sort of ring true to you. And you're going to go, oh, okay. But no, specifically, they're not part of the New Age movement, but the New Age movement uses parts of their religion to sort of bolster itself.
Okay, thank you.
Step right up, be lively. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Mary. I'm from Detroit.
Hello, Mary.
Hi. And it's actually a comment as somebody who was in the New Age for several years. I noticed that the purpose of everything, tarot, finding out the future, et cetera, was all to manipulate that energy, cosmic energy or whatever, in order to control other people and events. Mm-hmm. It was all about power. That was one of the things that turned me off about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very true comment. It's black magic. It's witchcraft. It's all the stuff. It's all controlling this energy so that you can control your universe around you. Isn't it always? It's always God's will or my will. Always, no matter what the mix is, that's always what it comes down to. Thank you. That's one heck of a tie.
Thank you, Mike. Regrettably, I can't ask you an intelligent question about the New Age movement because in your entire presentation, I couldn't find anything intelligent about it. So, you mentioned at the end of the thing, the Gospel of Luke, where you shall love the Lord your God with your whole heart, with your whole soul, with your whole strength, with your whole mind. Could you expound on that, please?
Well, that's how God made us. God made us intellect and free will. He made us spirit and body. And what is your body for? Your body is to express the yearning and the truth and the desire of your soul. So what should the desire of your soul be? Well, if you love God with everything that is spiritual about you, your body just kind of comes along for the ride. So I heard somebody put it once in the most beautiful way. It was when he was kneeling at Mass and it suddenly occurred to him, this is why God gave me a body, so that I could not only spiritually but physically fall down on my knees and worship God. Angels can't do that. Angels can't fall on their knees and worship God. Angels will never be able to receive our Lord in the Eucharist. We can. We have a privilege beyond the angels in some of these fashions of looking at them. And that's what we mean by, God made us body and soul. This is our nature. So for people to come along and sort of shed the idea that, a half of my nature isn't really real, that's an insult to God. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Be right back right after this. Welcome back. Just some closing thoughts real quickly. Again, I cannot stress enough, you need to think. When something comes to you and it sounds goofy, you know what? Trust your instinct. It's probably goofy. If you know that, if you have the slightest little modicum of anything about Christianity about you, God is personal. You're personal. The invitation is personal to come to Christ. It's not get absorbed into some silly force that doesn't exist and no one can explain where it came from or who it is, or why did the force set these rules up in the universe like this? Why is there gravity? Why do the planets revolve around each other? Where did matter come from? If it's so bad, why did they make it? You see, there's just billions of questions that remain unanswered they can't give an answer to. But Christianity gives an answer, and the answer is fight evil, and this garbage is evil. So fight it. Fight it. Tell your neighbors, you have to learn. The entire time we're here at St. Michael's, what do we say? We say, learn the faith so you can fight. What army goes into battle unprepared? The one that loses. What battle is won by the army that's prepared? Eternal life, if you're a Christian. Fight for Christ and fight for your own eternal life and the lives of those around you.